I've reached the dangerous part of June. Too many plants, not enough space, and just enough optimism to keep on planting. Today, I'm trying to tuck in the summer garden. Pumpkins, winter squash, beans, peppers, eggplants, and basil, and even a slightly dysfunctional patch of corn. Well, I've got a planting plan here, sort of. I've some more bean sticks here. I might string some twine between them eventually. Now what I'm thinking is I've got a few more of the runner beans to plant, so I'll kind of fill in the gaps there, and then I'm gonna put some winter squashes, some like a butternut and a kabocha and a delicata kind of in here to ideally to vine up this. We'll see if that works. And then plant some bush beans here, the kind that you eat fresh here. Still have to figure out where to put the bush beans that are for the shelling beans. I haven't concluded that, but these have been kind of out here waiting to get into the ground for a long time now, be too long. So we'll get them in and see how it goes. Well, this is my garden project for today, is clearing more of this area out and then deciding what I'm going to plant here, or actually planting here. This is where the fava beans were, and then clearing out some of what's in these stock tanks, specifically the spinach. So the spinach has gone to seed. There's some good spinach leaves in there I might be able to salvage for a meal or something. So maybe I'll clear them into a basket and then think about how to deal with that. But otherwise, I want the space to be able to plant some more stuff out. In particular, I've got like these kales and things like that. Got to figure out places to go. Well, this area, I'm still debating, like, should I put tomatoes or should I put my pumpkins here? Part of the reason I keep thinking about pumpkins is I haven't figured out where else to put the pumpkins yet. And I do want to grow some pumpkins, I think. So anyway, I guess I'll just keep thinking about that as I go here. All right, let's do it. I'm gonna get these out of the way though. Move them over to the other side of the wall just because I'm just looking here for, since I see the damage. This is a fairly self-contained system, right? It's like they're just in these little cups, so it seems like you should be able to find the caterpillars. I'm not finding it though. Okay, what do I have? This is a weed here. Just trying to imagine kind of how's the shade of the tree affecting the sun here. I mean, it does, but I mean, we're not getting early morning sun there, but we don't get early morning sun in most of the garden. But by the time the sun gets back over this way, I think it's getting a nice amount of sun, but I guess I'm not 100% sure really. I need to pay more attention. I've got pansies in here, but there's these weeds that are kind of disguising themselves like the pansies. My Mexican torch flowers never germinated. I've never had that problem before. They've usually been pretty good at germinating and pretty vigorous. So I need to go back and see. Maybe it's not too late. Maybe I can get some germinating now for blooming later in the summer. First, I'm going to start with the planting out of some leftovers of the runner beans. Get those all going. Those are really the only climbing bean I have this season. I kept thinking I was going to go get more seeds for some more traditional climbing beans, like a Kentucky Wonder or something, but I just didn't have the time, and also struggling to find space for things in the garden as is anyway. So it all comes back to that dang retaining wall project. Just had to go on pause because May and June is prime planting months. I don't have time to finish the wall at the same time, which down to circular logic means that I actually don't have as much space to plant things out. Okay, you might hear me sniffling. This is a very warm, going through a warm spell, which is also an allergy spell for me. These two could probably make it, but their leaves are dead or whatever. I don't have a huge incentive to just plant maybes right now, so I'm gonna not plant these two. Well, actually, I'll just put one kind of on the in-between. Okay, that concludes runner beans. Now I'm going to put the the winter squash layer in next. I'll start here with, I think this one's a kabocha. It doesn't have a label on it, but I'm pretty sure. And now as I'm planting the squashes, I'll actually use some, with the plan that I just voiced to you all, I probably should come back in here, intersperse some flowers just to fuse things, and that's just a little bit of organic fertilizer. I think this, well, one of these is the butternut and one of these is the delicata, but at this stage, I can't tell which one's which. So we'll just go with it. Okay, and now we'll do whichever the other one is, the delicata or the butternut. And I'm going to pray that wish that my plan is going to work, that there will be enough sun over here for all of this. Got nice soil to go into. So it's got that advantage, regardless of the sun. 3 winter squashes in there. And now I'm going to throw in the bush beans. You'll notice I don't really fertilize when I'm planting beans. I don't think they need it. I could be wrong, but it just doesn't seem like they need it. Let's start with these here so I can just get rid of a whole tray. I do have some pansies on the border here, so the bush beans are essentially going in between the pansies. Okay, right here. Okay, now I think, so I did 1 row of bush beans, yellow bush beans right on the front here. I think I can support another row here, so I'm gonna go ahead and do another row there. Maybe I'll space it so it's like a triangle kind of thing, so that the row doesn't line up exactly. It's in between these, but back 1 step. I don't know why I think that's a good idea. It looks spatially good to me to do that. And really, for the spacing on all this to work, I gotta force these winter squash to grow up and not out. And in my prior experience, that takes some vigilance on training and not just letting it go and then coming back to it later. You end up with a bit of a mess that you can't really control later. Okay, I don't have room for these beans over here, so I'm just gonna drop them over here for a minute. And picked an eclectic grouping of flowers to put in here. I've got some cosmos, some snapdragons, and some asters. Putting the cosmos near the back because they have the potential to grow the largest here. 1 more in there just so I use up the whole tray. Okay, then I will do the asters next in terms of space. So I really don't have that much space left for the snapdragons. Just a little bit of space maybe. I'll try 1 right here. Maybe call it good from there. I don't have the guts to put more in. That's jam-packed as it is. I'd like to find a nice home for those. I think I've gotten this area as much as I can. Now I gotta kind of tackle what I'm gonna do back there in the stock tank. I think it's time for me to get on with it in terms of tearing out this spinach. So I've got some peas. I might do a pea harvest today too. Yeah, so what I'm gonna do is I'll cut off the root ends of this, and then I'll put the plant in the basket, and then down by my sink I'll kind of peel the leaves off and see if we have some last meal from this spinach that way. Not being precious about not having any weeds in the path here, I just getting them before they go to seed and create a bigger hassle later. These days I'm having to stop my outside gardening activity by around noon. I'm just not built for that kind of heat. Don't seem to be built for that kind of cold either, so I don't really actually liked the cold. Never really liked too much heat. Unless I was on a beach somewhere, then I would just take a nap and soak in the sun, but otherwise, everyday living, I've never liked that much heat. But disease or things that peas will get after they've been in the ground for a while, and as the season marches on and then they get exposed to heat, is called innation, and it generally takes them over. They turn brown and then die out on you. Lots of ladybugs. Well, that's what Saying in a prior video, my cherry tree had tons of aphids that then brought in tons of ladybugs, and so all my plants here, I'm always finding ladybugs, which is great. I think it's keeping pests down. Certainly, I'm not seeing tons of aphids or anything like that, and that is the ladybugs doing their part. Okay, I think I've got all the spinach out. So let me do some thinking here as to what space do I have. I've got this stock tank here. There's a broccoli here. There's some onions kind of spread out here, broccoli there, but this has got room for something else here. Maddie, did you see the red lily over here?
Oh, where's the red lily? Maddie, come see the red lily.
Wow, it's really pretty.
Aww.
I like that color.
Well, this time something somewhat different. I'm planting an eggplant in this pot. Okay, and then I want to throw some Thai basil into this pot with it. Back to the peppers. Throw some French marigolds in there. Okay, well, I still have some yellow bush beans here. These are fresh snap beans for eating. So I'm going to try to tuck them into this stock tank here. How many I want to try to tuck in to this stock tank here. Then we'll go from there. And I don't typically use fertilizer for planting beans, so this will be more simple on that front. Using my dibbler here to make some holes. One of the reasons that, aside from leaning over less, it's kind of nice to do my dibbler from standing up because it gives me a broader perspective on the planting area. When you get up close, I kind of lose track of like how close I might be getting or what the overall layout might feel like, where I can really see it better, keeping a little bit of a distance here. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Maybe I'll tuck one back here, 12. That won't use up all of them, but okay. Can't see what this is. I'm not sure what kind of basil it is. I'm gonna still just Thai basil. I think I still want to do some marigolds. I'll do a couple of marigolds here. Okay, and one more marigold and we're done with this pot. Okay, we did it. Now I gotta put these in place and water them. Okay, well, I have concluded I will plant my shelling beans here in this stock tank. So I'm going to make my holes, put in the plugs, see if what I have left after doing as many as I can stuff in here. That's all I can fit in there. And I've still got quite a few, so I need to find another location for some shelling beans. Well, today I have failed you. I haven't been bringing you along on what I've been doing because it was just not convenient for me. I wasn't thinking about it, but I'm going to try to do better on this. And what I mean by that is I've been going around and tucking things in here and there. We're getting to that point where mid-June here where it's like, okay, whatever's going to go in's got to go in. And pretty soon, maybe put some stuff into backup containers, but pretty soon the garden will be what I think it will be for the summer. And by the end of June, sit back and relax, and I may succession plant some things here and there. I may flip out some things that didn't go right with some backup plants, but in general, the spacing and general outline of what is growing where for the rest of the season will be set. And I still don't have a clear picture of, I don't have a clear area just for pumpkins. I'm just now trying to figure out, okay, where can I fit them in? I don't have a clear area for the corn that I still have sitting in red cups. They're sitting too long there. They should have been already planted out. So feeling a little bit of anxiety about, okay, where am I going to put this stuff? Or maybe I will just have to give up on some of it and just say, you know what, this year maybe I just don't have room for all the things that I want to plant. That's where I'm at with things. And part of the strategy is going around, and the tucking things in, part of it is going around and seeing what haven't I harvested, but I just will never harvest and needs to come out. Lettuces that are bolting, for example, or I've got beets that should be harvested and come out. And so both of those kinds of things, getting them out of the way and then saying, oh, there's a hole there. I can maybe fit a pumpkin in there or another pepper in there or maybe even a tomato plant there. So that's what I'm up to here. Well, I've getting my kabochas planted and tucked in around the garden over the last few weeks. This is the last one that I have ready to go. The root zone's a little damaged by too much water, I think. So we'll see if this does okay. But I'm gonna drop one in here. This is already very crowded, but if it could work, these peas will die off at some point here in the next 30 days, I think. Then it'll have this whole vine to enjoy itself with. So I'm gonna go for it. Cross our fingers for that little guy. Well, I got a lot going on in this stock tank here, so I'm going to be pulling out these lettuces that are bolting. Didn't get them harvested. I think they're going to be too bitter now. And I'm going to pull back some of the arugula that's behind there too, see how much room that gives me and see what fun things we can put in here. This is the closest to my office door in terms of just coming out and harvesting something. So I'm thinking at very least I might want to put a basil in there. These lettuces, I mean, they look nice right here, but if you were to taste them, you would see that they're bitter, which is what happens when they shoot up a stalk like this and become what we call bolting. Okay, so I've got a bunch of arugula back here, but that's more arugula than we're gonna eat. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'll keep one, because I've got a lot of arugula in other parts of the garden, and because I wanna have more space for things, I'm thinking that I will keep one. These are some bunching onions. I don't think they're quite ready yet. Let them keep going there. Got a bok choy hiding back here. Maybe I'll go ahead and pull that now because it's destined to bolt if I don't anyway with the heat that we've been having. I'll go put this on my sink area to clean up and see if we can store it to go with some other harvests we'll have later. Maybe I'll just keep this one that's in the corner here. That'll give me a nice clear playing field here. Pull these out. And instead of just throwing them away, I'll clip them and put them on my harvest table over there. You know what? I'm gonna take this one too. It's already bolted. It's already got a flower. I mean, with arugula, it gets more spicy when it's flowering, and arugula is spicy anyway. So for me, I'm okay with continuing to harvest arugula after it's a flower. I don't. That doesn't bother me actually that much. But for a lot of people, that's when you would stop harvesting and just throw it away, is when it's got the flower. If you're looking at your own arugula, you may have white flowers. The variety that I'm growing here happens to have yellow flowers, but the varieties I've grown in the past have had white flowers. So all the flowers of arugula will differ in color, at the very least by variety. Okay, now I've got a nice clear playing field here. I'm kind of tempted to throw a tomato in there just for fun, but That'd take up a lot of root space and doesn't seem like a very practical thing to be doing. I think, let me see if I have any ground cherries left. I'd love to put one of those in here maybe. I think I got all the ground cherries actually. Okay, so I don't have those. So I think I want to do a basil in here for sure. Just a regular Genovese basil. Let me grab one of those just to, normally I plant the larger plants first and then the smaller plants around it, but because I really want to get a good basil in here, I'm gonna plant this one first just so I can be sure to leave myself enough space for, or make sure the basil has enough space. Let me pre-water my planting area here. I'm gonna plant 2 just for backups. A couple more in here. They don't all have to survive. I may trim some of them back, but that'll ensure that I achieve my objective there. It's getting hot already, so I want to let's get an eggplant in there. Now, I think we can shove some more peppers in there. Just thinking about it, I could have thrown a squash in there or something, but that'd be so messy to have a squash vine rolling around in there. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'll stick with some kind of pepper. I don't even know which ones are which at this point, so I'm just reaching around. Try to hope that by pulling from different areas, I'm giving myself some variety, but really, who knows? Well, turn that a little bit. I don't want that. I'll stick with that for now. When these onions come out, I can stick something else right here. No, I've got a pepper right here already. So yeah, I'll let this be for now. Okay, guess what I'm gonna try to tuck in here. I've got asters, some beans, some winter squash, some pansies. What am I gonna try to tuck into this little place where I just pulled out a lettuce? Another pepper. It's one of those days where I like getting my hands in the dirt, nice and dirty, get the dirt under my fingernails. Some days I just feel like it, you know. Other days I don't. I put my gloves on and say I don't want that stuff all over my hands. But today, I'm happy with it. So here I have a white pot with some stevia that I've now planted, and what you've seen me normally do with my pots like this is fill them up with flowers around the edges, but this stevia is so precious. It's the only one I have, the only one that survived all the germinations and everything that I've been doing to my seedlings. So I am giving it its whole pot by itself, and I'm gonna baby it right here and hope that I can get it to grow a little bit bigger so that I have an endless supply of stevia leaves to chew on when I'm out here in the garden. I'd love to do that. I love to grab a stevia leaf or maybe a spearmint leaf or a basil leaf and chew them together. It's a fun thing to have in the garden. Over here, I just planted a Howden pumpkin, which would be your kind of classic Halloween type pumpkin. So, I mean, I'm not giving the vines very much to grow, but what I'm imagining is I can maybe move the vine as it grows this direction and then train it to grow up the trellis here, the bean sticks that I've propped up against the cherry tree. I don't know, we'll see. I'm just, as I mentioned earlier, looking for anywhere and everywhere I can tuck things in, and this driveway garden doesn't have a lot of room for pumpkins. My goal this morning is to harvest these beets here, get this out of the way, take out this chard hanging out here behind me, also that I can have some more room here and maybe plant some winter squashes up front here that can make use of this trellis along with the runner beans. And what else I have room for. Actually, I shouldn't call it ahead of time that it'll be winter squash. I told myself I wasn't going to do that. I want to wait and see after I pull this out what this all looks like, how much space I have, and what I want to try to fit in here. I'm gonna pull this guy out. Oh no, pulled out one of my beans here. Put this to the side for a second and see if I can salvage it. This is an old chard. I'm just deciding whether I want to keep any of these leaves for a harvest or just toss the whole thing, make a decent harvest. for somebody. My family doesn't really eat chard, so toss the rest of this here. I'm gonna go ahead and just pull all the beets regardless of their size because I just need the room. I want the room, I should say. Some of these, if I know they're too small, I'm just gonna leave them be. I just pulled out another bean. Man, that's not great, but okay. I'm not saving the beet greens because my family doesn't really like to eat them. A smaller-ish beet, but it's gonna be a good size for taste, but we like the bigger beets for processing because it's just, if you're gonna cook and go to the trouble of cooking and peeling beets, it's just easier to have larger beets than to be dealing with smaller ones. There's a goofy shaped beet there. That's a nice looking beet right there. Got broccoli hiding in there. Got a volunteer tomato here. I'm gonna leave it there. It's probably, my guess, one of the current tomatoes. Volunteers often do outperform anything else in the garden, I find. They knew exactly where they wanted to grow and were strong enough to get going on their own. No, there's actually more than one there though, so what I'll do is I'll pull the smaller ones out. These are all too small. In an ideal world, I would have left them in the ground, let them size up. They would have. But again, I just am excited to grow some other stuff now, so I need to make some room in this small garden. Okay, let's see what we've got going on here. So we've got some spaces in and around things here. Just thinking about how aggressive can I be in planting winter squashes and pumpkins in here. I think maybe I can get one in there, maybe one kind of in the middle, and maybe another one to the side, so maybe 3. I was kind of thinking maybe 4 if I wanted to be really aggressive, but 3 is probably the right number, which means I'm going to try 4. Okay, I've got some choices here. I got a couple pumpkins and a couple of winter squash. Throw a pumpkin right here. Let's see, so I've got the Gerardelle pumpkin and the Baby Boo pumpkin. Okay, it's gonna leave me lots of room. Well, not lots of room, but room for something here. I might put a pepper or something right here. Or maybe come back and I still have some beans, some bush beans, so I may come back and throw some bush beans in there while the pumpkin still doesn't need an enormous amount of room. And then I've got the Baby Boo pumpkin, which maybe I'll drop right in here. Baby Boo is the little mini pumpkins, but they're white. And those kind of pumpkins tend to vine a lot, but these are really good and easy. These baby pumpkins like this that vine a lot are good and easy to grow up a trellis like this. I may want to stake this broccoli here at some point, so get my winter squash. I have one, in terms of winter squash varieties here, I've got one delicata and one butternut. Well, actually, I just saw the label. This is actually the Gerardelle pumpkin, which I thought was what I was putting over here. So this, I believe, is actually the delicata squash. Let me drop the Gerardelle pumpkin right here. I've got some volunteer tomatoes flying up there right next to my kale. Wonder how that'll go, or if it'll go. That looks reasonable in terms of a seedling. I was worried these were in their things for too long, but it doesn't look too bad. And then I'll put the butternut right here. Look at that. I did get 4. I did manage to cram 4 in there. That's not saying it's a good idea, but I worked it out in my imagination anyway. Okay, I brought some asters over to kind of plug in and around here, get some flower action going. I just think not only does it look nice that way, but it can hopefully help in inspiring pollinators to hang out in the area too. Well, I'm trying to be careful to leave room for where I could cram in some more peppers 3 asters in there. I don't need to go, 4 asters. I don't need to go crazy. Well, I've just got one more, so let me just do one more. I'll just drop it right here. That way I can be done with that whole tray, that whole 6-pack. Okay, good. Got some pumpkins, winter squash, some asters in there, and I still have room kind of up front here, so I'm gonna, that'd either be, you know what I was saying earlier, remaining bush beans should go in here, and I think that's right because, you know, they'll grow and then they'll harvest, they'll get out of the way, and then the pumpkins will probably take over the space. The timing may not work out precisely the way I'm hoping, but yeah, rather than throwing a lot of peppers in here, let me bring some bush beans over here. Some bush beans in along the row there is my idea. This is like potting soil, old potting soil that's been put in here, so it's very soft. It has its advantages, I mean, plenty of drainage, but the disadvantage would be that I don't know how much nutrients really in here other than the fertilizer I've been putting in it this year as I'm planting, but okay, I think that's really all there's room for right now. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little bush beans. I got a bunch more here still. Let me do a second layer on some of these. Put one here. Okay, I need to get some water up here, and then this exercise will be complete for now. Well, let's talk about corn. You can't really see it in here, but I've got my corn plants in here. And, you know, this is not the ideal way to plant corn. So that's part of what I wanted to talk about, is talk about how you're supposed to do it, how I'm doing it given my limited space, things I'm trying, what I'm expecting out of it, all that sort of stuff. So first off, the thing about why do I even grow corn? I mean, in a small space, it's a little bit interesting to grow corn. I'm growing corn because there's 2 things I want out of it. One is if I can grow enough to get like 1 meal out of it, just kind of as a ceremonial thing. It's part of it, so I can get some cobs, we can have it on the dinner table. Once a year we can say, hey, we grew some corn. I think that's fun. Secondarily, or maybe this is actually the first and most important reason, I like the look of the corn stalks in the garden. So I just think it's fun to have the corn stalks growing in the garden. And then the third point is that aside from harvesting the cobs, I actually like to harvest the stalks themselves. So once the stalks are, you know, yay high and you've pulled the one cob, you generally only get 1 cob off a stalk of corn, right? Sometimes you might get 2 depending on the variety, but everything that I've grown, I'm only usually getting 1 off there. So you get 1 cob off the stalk. So once you harvest it, then you've got this stalk, and what I like to do is I like to cut them and them dry out and use them as fall decorations. So, you know, along with the display of pumpkins that you might have, I have these stalks of corn that I can display as kind of my fall decor, usually on the deck somewhere. You know, we've got some pumpkins and some corn stalks, and so I think that's fun too. So I've got these variety of reasons of growing corn for the stalks as well as for the ears and for the fun of it. So that's my purpose of it. Now let's talk about the practicality of it here. So I don't have open beds this year or big enough space to really do it right, so to speak. So, and what do I mean by that is that corn, you want to grow it in blocks and you want to grow it together, and the reason is because it's wind pollinated. So you may know this, but the wind blows across the corn, and then it blows the pollen from one tassel over to the other corn, and that's what causes the ears to fill out with corn. And so it's got to get pollinated well, and so you got to grow them together, and you want it so that if the wind's blowing this way or if it's blowing this way, it's going to work out. Now I'm next to a fence. If the wind's blowing this way, I don't know how helpful that's going to be. Certainly if it's blowing this way, it could be helpful. I am planting them close together in this block here. I've got 9 stalks of corn kind of planted in and around here. And so it's not like I'm just doing a row. I'm kind of doing rows as much as I can fit into kind of a 2-foot space there, 2.5-foot space there, right? But ideally I would have had maybe a little bit wider. The space that I'd plant in would be as wide as it is long. So rather than a rectangle, I would be planting more in a square in a limited space here. You can plant in a rectangle, but you still want it reasonably wide. I'm just not confident that I got enough width here to really have enough corn to really get good pollination. But we'll find out, right? We'll find out in the season. I've got them tucked into these various places in here, you know, so there's 1 there, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I might have 12 actually in here, yeah. These were the corn that I had in the little red cups before that you may have seen in prior videos. Now the other piece of it is I've thrown a lot of fertilizer down around it because corn, another thing to know about corn is that they're heavy feeders. So they want their water and they want their nitrogen, they want their fertilizer. So I've put a lot of fertilizer in there. Now the other challenge to what I'm doing here is I have other plants in here. So I've got a broccoli in here, I've got a couple of cabbages, I've got beans on this thing here. Corn and the beans should be fine. That's a classic put together. You know, may have heard of the Three Sisters methodology of corn, beans, and squash. So I've got some squashes and some beans with my corn, so that part should be fine. But I think the onions, the flowers, the broccoli, the cabbages, those in here, I don't know if they're going to interfere with the corn at all. Those aren't normal companion plants. Broccolis and cabbages are not something you normally hear of growing with corn. I haven't looked this up, so I don't know if there's any particular detriment to that, but other than space, but we'll see. So a lot of different things going on here that we can learn about together as we see how this matures, and we'll see what kind of corn we get, if any, out of it. If all we do is get a few stalks out of it, that's still worth it. And we'll then gear up and see what we can do next year if we don't actually get the of corn. But that's corn story. A little bit dysfunctional. I've got a dysfunctional corn story for you this morning. That's what I'm talking about. Okay,